It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Dr. May is a native, as I am, of East Texas. He earned his doctorate in education from Texas A&M Commerce. He holds a Master's of Education and a Bachelor of Science degrees from Stephen F. Austin. He started his higher education career in 1978 as an adjunct faculty member at Cedar Valley College right here in Dallas County Community College District. He is the current chancellor. He's actually our 7th chancellor, and he's a strong advocate for adult education. He previously served as president of the Louisiana Community and Technical College System, and he was a Fulbright Scholar to Russia. He has served on community college initiatives in Japan, the United Kingdom, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. So please welcome me in joining Dr. May.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for allowing me to come and spend a little time with you today. It's appreciate the invitation, but I really appreciate the great work you do as a club, both locally and internationally as well. As we were talking at you, I know you have an impact on our students. Just briefly, I'm not going to talk a lot about our college. Talk a little bit about the work and our partnerships and what we do today. But Dallas County Community College District today has 7 colleges, one just right below us here that it's so close you can't actually see it from up here as you look down on El Centro College. We're in have about 7 buildings downtown here in Dallas, and if your timing was really good, because if about a month from now we'll be talking about building a new campus downtown Dallas. So we'll as we look to really build toward the future. So then I'd be talking about bond campaign, which is a whole different conversation as we get there. But the district this year, we served about 140,000 students at any one time at our 7 colleges. Roughly 80,000 of those are in our traditional credit programs. Some of our fastest growing areas would be our adult education programs, English as second language, and other work that we do with business and industry. And apprenticeships are a rapidly growing area for us today. In fact, we added 27 new apprenticeship programs just in the last 12 months, and we'll probably add about 35 more this year as we're working with programs. Healthcare is going to be a real fast-growing area for us for apprenticeship programs, but they just opened up one for drone pilots with law enforcement, first responders, training them in that regard. So it's pretty diverse in that. But again, not the topic for today. I want to just share with you a little bit about where we see our role fitting into Dallas County and the communities that we serve. You know, and when arriving back in Dallas about 5 years ago, it was a different Dallas than I saw last time I had been here and that I'd worked in this community. On one hand, it was obvious, a booming economy, cranes on the horizon, help wanted signs hanging just about in every window and on every building I could see in the community. And yet, we had the 3rd fastest growing poverty rate in the nation as we looked at that. So how could that be in today's world? Well, some other things had changed. You know, I mentioned I grew up in East Texas, and back when I graduated from high school, only 25% of the jobs required any education beyond high school. We just finished up a labor market study with our labor information division that we have within the district, looking at the jobs created in Dallas between 2015 and 2016. Those were 122,000 new jobs. Do the math on that in North Texas. That's 335 a day that were created. Fully 65% of all of those jobs required some education beyond high school. Many a bachelor's degree, some an associate degree, many a short-term certificate, some as little as 8 weeks of education, but most of them today require that. And so education really matters. When we just finished up a survey of employers, and you could probably guess that the number one concern of employers in North Texas is talent. where are they going to get the people with the knowledge, skills, and ability to help them be successful and grow their business in a meaningful way? And that may be a challenge to many of you in the room. And so your support of scholarships and other works really makes a big difference in getting more people in the door. We think one of the reasons that we got this way is because we tried too long to go it alone, and it really takes a collaborative approach to addressing some of the needs today. And I want to talk about that a bit. But let me, when you think about a community college district and 350 programs, as I said, we serve 140 students at any one time. Certainly a diverse area from support of small business all the way up through training for business and industry. We really believe that we have three primary responsibilities. And the number one of that is to help our community be successful. And by that, we mean economic success. If there's only two ways to grow GDP, either you increase the size of the workforce or you increase the productivity of the workforce. That's it. And so we believe we have to be directly engaged with both of those in order to help our community be successful. The second is we believe very strongly that we must help businesses prosper. And we've really grown our work for small businesses. This past year, we worked with 13,000 small businesses to provide them support and what they needed to get there, because that's how we create jobs. And if we aren't creating wealth and jobs in the community, then it's tougher to inspire our young people to enroll in programs in order to get those jobs. So we believe that by working collaboratively with a broader community, that we can have an impact. But I want to share with you, it's on one hand, there are more opportunities today than ever. On the other hand, we have not done a great job of getting our local students into that pipeline and get prepared for those jobs. So I mentioned 65% of the jobs require a post-secondary credential. However, when we look at the graduates of Dallas County, and I'm talking about the 16 school districts and charter schools and others, there are 107 high schools in Dallas County. When we look at that population, only 27% today are going on to get a post-secondary credential. Only 27%. We've actually declined over the last 4 years from 30%. 37% have some type of post-secondary credential in the community, meaning we're importing a lot of the people to bring those in. In fact, for the 335 jobs a day being created, 395 people a day are moving into North Texas to take those jobs. So that's the challenge as we look at our role and how we address this. And what we've really if you hear us talk about some of the things I'll just share with you, we're operating under a goal that we call 60 by 30 Texas. Our strategy there is to grow the population to 60% with a post-secondary credential by the year 2030. And I'll share with you a little bit about how we're going about that. We call this a Dallas Promise Network as we pull this together. And I'm going to mention, you may have heard of the Dallas County Promise as one new piece of this that we've created to really solve some of the challenges that folks face. Well, let me just jump right into it and show you this messy slide. And I'll explain what it is. We see that what we're really designing is a network model by which we connect students to resources that exist already in many cases within the community. So I'm going to talk about, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see Dallas County ISD school districts. We now start with schools working with students coming out of the 8th grade. We now have 43 partner schools that we work closely with. In order to be one of our partner schools and be a part of the Dallas County Promise, they have to agree to make certain changes in terms of how they engage students. We ask that we pre-test coming out of the 8th grade to assess their college readiness, and then we begin working on those skills in the 9th grade reading, in the 10th grade writing, in the junior year of high school mathematics, and then we bring in college courses. We also are now bringing industry in. Each of these high schools has 2 company partners in that to work and engage with the students as mentoring. For example, Oak Cliff, Adamson High School, American Airlines and IBM are the 2 partners there. In a unique arrangement, American Airlines has 27 people every day at that location in that school. IBM has 10 every day, working with those students to help them stay on a career pathway. And if you look, there's a path that goes all the way through, branching into universities, branching into jobs, as we are really working to create that. So we've in the model in which we operate today, we start coming out of the 8th grade, we create a pathway so that we can go all the way through. So on the far end, 70 companies now are working with us. We need more. Our goal is to get over 100 engaged with us in the coming year. If you're affiliated with it's pretty much who you would expect. Everyone from J.P. Morgan Chase to Children's Hospital to Accenture, AT&T, IBM, others that are partnering with us in this effort. So then we on the toward the end, of course, UNT Dallas, we've now added about 6 other universities. TWU is coming on, and I'll explain what that means as that they're part of the overall network work strategy. You know, as we look at the population we serve and we look at what's going on in Dallas County today with jobs, there's just a huge disconnect between the two. So how do we narrow the gap, and how do we make that possible, given the fact that our students are poorer than they've ever been? They have less resources available to them than any time in the 54-year history of the Dallas County Community College District. For example, since 1999, median family income has declined 16% in Dallas County. So meaning that more of the students today are on free and reduced lunch when they're coming out of high school. And just because they're a year older, that need does not go away. And so I'll talk about how we bring together services. For example, over 59% of our students today are missing meals on a regular basis. I'll show you one that'll stun you. 8,000 of those students don't know where they'll sleep tonight. They're going from home to home, sometimes relatives, sometimes friends, and increasingly challenged as we look at how we, in fact, create a network of resources to really address those needs and make that happen. So a couple of things that we were looking at as we began to work, and you'll see commit up in the upper left-hand corner too. We realized that everyone can do a really good job at what they do with the things, whether it be high schools, colleges, universities, employers, or DART, or North Texas Food Bank, or others. But where we're terrible and where we fail is we don't do handoffs well. We don't do transitions well. And so what we've created is a strategy that we work with our partners. If you see the dotted lines, they matter a lot more than the things. And we've really begun to focus on the dotted lines, the transitions, how we manage handoffs. And so we created, when we were shadowing, we had 40 of our employees trained to shadow students for 6 months and learn what was going on. We quickly realized transportation's a problem. And so today we partner with DART. We provide free public transportation passes up to 123,000 of our students at any time to really address that need. We quickly realized also that they were missing meals. So we now partnered with the North Texas Food Bank. We had food pantries on every campus to address those needs. We now have partnered with HEB, and we have a mobile pantry to bring fresh produce. We've trained employees on every campus to administer the federal programs such as SNAP and others in order to make that. We partner with county health to help with vaccinations and other needs that exist. So I point that out. These are not things we created. We didn't create public transportation, but there's a need, and so we've really figured out how do we bring together. Developed a special app now that's used for our students. They can use DART for any purpose they want, but to make sure that we can help accelerate that. But so I want to say that the transitions, some of them are pretty easy to do. Some of them are really hard. And the hardest one is high school to college. the one that we kind of take for granted. It turns out no one owns that gap. High schools get them graduated. They may give them some help, some students, to apply for scholarships or admissions or tour. But for the majority, they get no help whatsoever. And you layer on top of that about 70% of the students living in Dallas County are coming that we see coming out, particularly Dallas ISD. They're coming out of homes where these children, young people, have been told by their parents all their life, we can't afford to send you to college. You can't afford to go. And I was talking with a young man recently, the class president at Grand Prairie High, Jose Alvarez. He's happened to now be going to El Centro College here within the district. So we had a meeting with just talking to him and what we're doing. And he said, look, people think because I have good grades that I'm class president that I'm going to college. He said, I wasn't, because my parents told me they couldn't afford it. And so I believed them, and all my friends believed their parents. And so how do we change that and make do something different? And that's when we did something pretty unusual. We created something we call the Dallas County Promise. You may not have heard of that. Let me tell you what that is. What we did, we went and looked at the Tennessee Promise, took a group of our local folks from United Way, Todd Williams from Commit, some of our donors and foundation board members and others, and looked at how they built that out. And they have fundamentally changed the higher ed landscape in Tennessee by creating a pathway for a free post-secondary education if the students do three things. And so we looked at that and we said, we think we can do this in Dallas. And so we started with 31 high schools, and here are the three things that we asked that they do. By the end of January, that they make a commitment on our website and make a pledge to not only start but complete college. Last year, 31 high schools, 9,300 seniors in those high schools. And by the way, this year we're working with 43. We're going to be adding about 10 to 12 new schools a year to this. We at those 31 high schools, 9,300 students, 96% pledged. So about 9,000 of them made the commitment to go to college. Second thing they have to do, and you ever heard of the FASFA? The free federal financial aid paperwork that provides you Pell Grants. The second thing we ask them is that they complete the FASFA, and if they're not a U.S. citizen, which about 10% aren't, that they do the TASFA, which is the Texas state version of that, to make that happen. Now, let me tell you why that's important. A, it's their money that's there for them to take, and it will pay completely for a college education at the Dallas County Community College District colleges, and I'll explain why in a moment that we do that. But it also, when we look at people coming from an economically disadvantaged background, remember Jose Alvarez wasn't going to college, but there is one thing and one thing only that correlates whether or not they go to college, and it's not grades, it's not ranking class, it is whether or not they complete the FAFSA. That's it. And it's random within Dallas County. Some schools do a pretty good job of it. Some schools apparently ignore it. And so that we have schools like when we started working with Spruce, only 4% of those students went on to get a post-secondary education because they weren't completing the FAFSA. And so now part of what we're working on is with the Dallas County Promises to get that done. The third thing is simply enroll in college. Now, when we started this, some of us, including me, had a little bit of an issue with the word free until we talked to students, and they didn't understand anything unless we said free. If we said anything else, they thought it was a trick and a barrier. In fact, many of them, they kind of peeped behind the curtain to make sure that it was real. And what we did, we've had for a long time, thanks to the generosity of this community, a scholarship program called the Rising Star. Rising Star has been around since 1999. We have about 35 million, which is a considerable amount, and it's done a great job of meeting the needs. However, it was a traditional scholarship model. We were giving the money to folks that were already going to go to college, not looking at it, how can we take care of the transition and barriers and get individuals who had the ability but weren't going to go anyway. So we decided to create our own Dallas County Promise. And we did that in a way that I realized that while we were going to fund it, we wrote and set it up, I realized if it was run through us, we would be a barrier because what I want is students to go anywhere. Everyone's better off in some college than not in any college. And so we did something unusual. Our foundation wrote commit a $1.2 million check to start the Dallas County Promise. We provide the scholarship resources. We've redirected parts of our Rising Star Scholarship to now make that available, and we will guarantee any student at a partner high school. I said this year it's 43. Next year it'll be up in the closer to 60 in there as we expand it. The opportunity for a free pathway to college. And guess what? Then University of North Texas Dallas said if you completed community college, we'll match the deal for the last 2 years. And SMU said we can't do everyone, but we're going to be setting aside, and they've now expanded dramatically the scholarship for this program. TWU is coming on board. Midwestern State is out of Wichita Falls is joining the effort. Texas A&M Commerce is about to join as we do this, so that we can create a network of education resources that can help individuals move through. And so it's working. And let me just I'll share with you. Then, of course, once they're there, we've got the other support and partnerships as we look at meeting the need. So I'm going to skip this slide here. So let me tell you what we found. We're now into the second, starting the second cohort is now committing this spring to go. But let's with the 43 high schools. But let's look at what happened with the 31 high schools around the state. And you see, we started with the worst performing schools in the area, which is why we're real heavy south right now on the pins in the map. But we are now branching out and going up north as we continue to work with the schools. And one data point that's not on here, when we started working with this, TISD, of course, they have 23 high schools. 18 of those high schools were on what's called the IR list. IR, improvement required, meaning that they were in trouble by the state. Within 2 years of partnership and working with them, not a single one of those high schools are on that list anymore. In fact, 6 of the top 11 best performing schools in the state are now DISD high schools within that. And the impact is profound, and I'll share a couple of stories here, but let's look at 31 high schools, 9,300 seniors, 80% economically disadvantaged, 55% Hispanic, 35% Black, 10% white. There only 11% of the high school graduates would go on to get any type of post-secondary education in within a 6-year window. It's this group larger than 8 U.S. states. So what happened? 96% pledged, 67% jumped and completed their FASFA, getting $3 more million, nearly $4 million into the pockets of students. We grew year-over-year enrollment growth from those 31 high schools 35%, and UNT grew 30% from those schools. So this fall we had the first group come through, and let me tell you about that group. That group was of this cohort ended up with 2,500 within the Dallas County Community College District. Others went elsewhere. Normally, we would lose about 500 of those that wouldn't finish their courses, just not finish. It was only 3% this time. So we only had 50 students instead of 500. So the support there with all the other services makes a huge difference. Normally, we would have only about half that completed the semester re-enroll from the spring. We're right now at 85%. Getting there. So the impact of working collaboratively, and that's really what I want to stress back here. This is the opposite of doing it alone. This is how we can engage resources that are already available, folks already working on some aspect of these problems, and bring them together in such a way with the student in the center that they don't have to go out and look for them. I can share we've partnered with other entities. A funny one named Aunt Bertha out of Austin. Aunt Bertha is a web design that they allow a student or you or me or anyone else to go in, that if you need food, you can it'll tell you what's available. If you in an abusive relationship, it will help you get legal assistance at low or no cost. Healthcare, housing, whatever is needed. So we partner with them. We white label that into our web page, and we work to whether it be a veteran, there's a track for veterans, there's a track for others that whatever the needs are to make that happen. But as we grow, we need a couple of things. We're going to continue. I was on the phone with the superintendent at Garland for about an hour yesterday morning as they're looking at bringing 7 high schools into the plan, and they're going to be putting in the pathway to technology high schools that are there. And let me explain a little bit about what that is. You may hear the term P-Tech high schools, or you may hear an early college high school. The model at which our schools come in is going to be one or those two models. And by that, what we mean is we create right out of high school the opportunity for them to not only take college credit, but to get an associate's degree. So this year we had about 2,000 students get an associate's degree the week before they graduated from high school. And so in those schools, and let me tell you the story of Samuel. Now, Samuel we have a little longer track record with, and that was the one where we really identified the model and what was working and how we could transform an entire school by working with about a quarter of the students in that school. So Samuel, before my time, in 2010, was on the verge of being shut down by the state. They had one more year left to operate. They put a principal in there to almost take it down that year, but he wanted to do something different. So he reached out to Gene Conway, who was then president of Eastfield College over in Mesquite, and said, I want to do an early college high school. Gene said, I've heard of them. We've never done them. And I said, me either, but they got together and they created it. So early college high school creates a complete associate's degree and makes it available within the high school. And in this case, they do a couple of things. He remodeled a wing. They provided transportation to take the students for their college courses over to the Eastfield campus. In that year, 2010, 9% of that graduating class went on to get a the 2009 class went on to get a post-secondary credential, 9%. They only had a 38% graduation rate in that year. So fast forward to today, still 400 students in that school, or that year, and ultimately that 9%, that meant roughly 40 students ever earned out of that 2009 class post-secondary credential. This year, we graduated 60 with associate's degree before they received a high school diploma. The latest data we have from Samuel is that 58% of the within 6 years are now earning a post-secondary degree, and we think we're going to hit 65% with that as we continue to work to make that happen. In fact, a great success story. A young woman graduated with an associate's degree, went to Texas Tech for a year, got her teaching certification, and at age 20 is now teaching for the Dallas Independent School District, and so great stories. But with our P-TECH, we're really making those align with the needs of where jobs are in the community. Those are IT, healthcare. We do police, fire, and rescue with partners on there. There's other types of careers and program areas. So we are looking to grow the number of companies, small businesses can get engaged. There's lots of ways to do that, and would encourage maybe as a club you look at that engagement. And let me mention one other way. So one of the ways that we've been able to create a free pathway is because we do something that almost no other district does. And we're blessed here in Dallas because we have a great local tax base. We're 4% of your tax bill if you live in here. We're the smallest sliver on that bill. But that 4% allows us to artificially buy down the cost of tuition. We're at $59 a semester credit hour. That's it. There are no fees. There are no parking fees, no tech fees, anything else. That's the total cost. So that allows a Pell Grant to cover the entire cost of that educational component for students. So we're $1,770 a semester or a year in cost, and so that $3,500 Pell Grant that they get covers that and gives them the dollars they need in order to have some left over for living and other things. And starting this next year, we're going to be adding books into that, so that will all be part of the prize. So I want to thank you for that support. It's what's allowing us to grow this out today and to serve the students that we're doing, because we don't have to count on the revenue from tuition to make that happen. So that's the other piece that I thank you for and need you to continue, because it's making a big difference for there. And with that, let me just stop and thank you for allowing me to come. I also appreciate the invitation to be here, and be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Well, thank you. At what point? They open that up in October of each year. So this year we're well ahead of last year. We haven't really been in this much more than a year on that piece of it. So we're this year, instead of 9,300 seniors, we're working with 16,000. So that process has started. We're on track right now, and that's a big help. Yeah, and let me mention something too. One of the things that I do a lot of time talking to United Way groups and churches and others, because there is a stumbling block for a lot of our folks coming out of poverty and that area. In order to do the FASFA, you've got to submit your parents' taxes as a part of that. And there's a tragedy that's occurring in the community. We've got some of the tax preparers that will tell some of these families to file their taxes separately, not married and separate. The student fills out the FASFA and clicks married on. They get thrown into what's called verification, and it can never be resolved. They never get dollars for college because of the way the taxes were done. So we're looking at how we can impact that and get the message out as early as the parents in the 8th grade, and we're working with schools and churches and others to, but that impacts a surprisingly large number. We estimate about 20% of seniors get impacted in some way by that. Yes.
27% would go for post-secondary. Does that include students that are going out of the CCCD?
It does. We get data nationally on that. The question is the 27% getting a degree beyond? And we track that wherever they go in the nation. We're part of a network called the National Student Clearinghouse, so we get real time. We know what's happening to people, and we track that pretty closely. Yes.
Does the student have to be financially disadvantaged to have the true free offer?
No, we all means all for us. We realize, and this was one of the things we learned from Tennessee, that if you put any restrictions on, so there's no grade restrictions, there's no income restrictions, anything, those that are most disadvantaged think that it's designed to screen them out, and instead of helping, we've realized it does harm. So what our foundation does is fill the gap. So about 10% of the graduates this year were immigrants, therefore not eligible for federal financial aid. We covered their costs. If they got kicked out of verification and couldn't get that resolved, we covered their cost. That's in there. If their families made too much money for it, we covered the cost, so that we've realized that if all doesn't mean all, then people start self-selecting out of the process. Some folks have a little heartburn with that, but we've quickly, the data has really shown we help a lot more students coming out of economically disadvantaged background with that approach. I've got a hand here, then up front. Yeah.
You probably said this up front, but how many students in the Dallas County?
We do about 140,000 a year on that, about 80,000 in traditional credit programs. We grew this fall 10,000 students. So and I think we'll see that kind of growth for the next couple of years. I'm expecting 4 more years of 10,000 a year growth. With
It's great news. My wife and I both went to community college and then went on to UT in Austin. And we think, both of us, more and more kids should do this. And I'm just wondering, is anything going on right now with student loans? One of the problems I think is happening is kids are getting student loans at 18 years old, 17, whatever. They're going out and saying, where do you want to go to school? Well, what kid won't say, hey, I want to go, to Alabama, or I want to go to Clemson, or I want to go. And the first 2 years, spend a lot of money and come out with $50,000 in debt. Anybody looking at that side of it coming back to force those kids to say, okay, first 2 years in community college?
Well, I wouldn't go for, but certainly choice matters, and going somewhere. The loans are a concern. I'm part of a group that it's called Rebuilding America's Middle Class, but all we do is federal lobby. It's to do that, and we were successful this year. The federal law in that area, when you do the Pell Grant, it used to require us to package loans with the Pell Grant, and so individuals would take out loans simply because it appeared that it was there, and we have no ability to screen or deny that. As it's the U.S. Department of Ed treats that as a right, and so we have asked to separate that packaging because we know that reduces the need, and frankly it makes sense. Every time I hear somebody talk about lending, that when you look at an individual they literally have no assets at all, no income at all, and yet they're borrowing dollars and really in many cases mortgaging their future in that case. Let me do here, then back here, and we'll do mine. Yeah.
Do I understand that every student is assigned a counselor?
Yeah. Yes. In a couple of different ways. Each of the colleges has advisors that work with them, but we also this year created a position that you can see just below the Dallas Community College District logo. There's another little star lurking a symbol. That's our navigators, and these are institutionally agnostic. We'll help them get into UTD. We'll help them get into UNT. We don't care where they're going. This year we have 9 of those. We'll expand those. Those are primarily by text. We send hundreds of thousands of texts back and forth to students, and phone is how we handle that. Yeah.
DISD, you've got a lot of new charter schools now. How do charter schools work going into the system for the Dallas Promise?
Yeah, and charter schools, as of today, we haven't brought. I think this next year we're scheduled to bring one in on that, and again, not all of them are well performing either. What we did so start with the worst performing schools in the area and work our way up from the bottom. Great news is we saw, at least in Dallas Independent School District, more students leave charter schools and come into the district this year than they have in the past. So enrollment actually went up.
It occurs to me that the 2 major factors when you have someone to educate, their motivation to be educated and their scholastic ability to be educated. And you may have someone that has great scholastic ability and they qualify for scholarships, but they may not have the motivation to continue. How do you sort that out?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. When we see young people coming up and been told in their home that that's not going to be available to them, they kind of shut it down and they quit. What we've seen, if we can show them coming out of the 8th grade, and we actually work with a nonprofit that works with the 8th grade teachers now in the school districts to help them teach students and their parents how to start thinking about college and how to really prepare for it in a meaningful way, that in fact a lot of people with ability were being screened out. The reality is that when you look at the percentage of individuals coming from well-to-do families but without academic ability, their chance of completing the degree is identical to an individual coming out of poverty with high scholastic ability. Does that make sense? The two equal each other, meaning that we're keeping a lot of people out of poverty with ability out of school right now, getting anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, thank
Dennis.
you very much for being here. And I obviously encourage people to do education, but my friend Charles Murray, who you may know, believes that too many people go to college, not too few, and that if you all the people in the seniors took the SATs, only 10% would pass the amount that needs to go to college, whereas 30% go to college. How would you answer that?
You know, and there's a phrase I've heard all my life: college is not for everybody. You've heard it too. What they mean, I believe, and this is accurate, is a 4-year degree is not for everybody. Well, so you take Dallas County and look at it. And I mentioned we looked at those 122,000 jobs, 65% of them requiring a post-secondary credential. Here's how that broke out. Of those, 32% required a bachelor's degree or higher, of that 65% of that. About 33% required a technical certification, whether it be in healthcare or some other area or technologies that are out there, an associate's degree, and again, whether for healthcare or others, that's in there. Now, here's the challenge. I mentioned that 37% of Dallas County have some type of post-secondary degree credential that's there. 32% of those are bachelor's degrees. The gap is in the less than bachelor's that's there, where we need a lot more people going in. So I wouldn't argue that not everyone should go to college, but I do believe we've really done a disservice to folks saying that there's only one metric for success, and that's if you get the bachelor's degree. I can tell you, and I was 7 years in the state of Louisiana, went there after Hurricane Katrina to rebuild those colleges. We built 52 buildings, eight campuses in the aftermath of that tragedy that's there. But we also took about realigning programs to the economy. We closed 500 programs in those 7 years. We opened 250 more. And the average salary today, because I was there recently and looking at it, of a 2-year graduate is about 20% higher than the average salary of a baccalaureate graduate. And that's because we're talking in fields and careers where that's needed. The average salary of the 2-year graduate in Louisiana today is $57,000 within 2 years of leaving the program. So it is really. It's about alignment. You know, there's a saying in community college circles that our enrollment cycle's the inverse to the economy, meaning that when the economy is good, enrollment drops. When the economy goes south, enrollment goes up. We believe in Dallas that that's only true if your programs don't reflect the needs of the economy. We grew 10,000 students this fall, and this is a booming economy. And we believe that's because the programs we have aligned meet the needs of this economy, and we have the ability to do it. So the question is, in what field matters more than degree, and there's data to show that. So again, thank you very much. Dana's standing up. I know what that means. So.
Gift for you, Dr. May,
Oh, well, thank you.
in appreciation of your presentation today. This is our Centennial Club book, and if you just take a look at the inside cover there, everyone here has signed this.
Oh, that's super.
Today in
Thank you
honor of
very
your
much. That's
presentation.
great.
So
Thank you.
Thank you very
Great
much.
to be here. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. There we are. Next week, we will have Fort Worth Rotarian Sylvia Mahoney telling the story of the Great Western Trail. You won't want to miss this really exciting piece of American history, so we hope to see you all back here next week. Also next week, we have our board meeting, our first board meeting of the calendar year, immediately following the club meeting. And we always invite any interested club members to join us and hear what's going on in the board. Be sure and check out the pre- and post-meeting announcement slideshow. We have so many things going on. It's too much to talk about during our 1-hour meeting. And so there's a lot being mentioned, everything from hunger events to Dallas Stars games. So I hope you'll stick around and just take a quick look and not miss a beat of what's going on at the Rotary Club of Dallas. Thanks again to everyone for your attendance today, members and guests alike. We really appreciate you all being here, and we hope you enjoyed our program. Rotary membership is indeed a privilege, and we do accept new members by invitation only. However, someone did think very highly to invite you to be here with us today, so we hope you'll consider joining us. Remember, share the gift of Rotary, be people of action, and continue to be the inspiration. In closing, Rotarians, please stand and recite with me of all the things that we think, say, and do. First, second, third, fourth, and at the Rotary Club of Dallas, we have a fifth. Yes, it is. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.